Eric, yeah, what? Please, I'd love to hear.
Okay. Um, like Ruth, a lot of my work is helping people step out of the old programming that they've taken on over this lifetime and probably in some cases that they brought with them from other lifetimes. Stuff that was delivered and installed by people that probably meant well, but they weren't always um, in the right direction. And many times that programming wasn't accurate when it was installed and really largely is totally inaccurate now. And so I remind them that there's a little version of them sitting on their shoulder, whispering nonsense in their ear, and that it's perfectly fine to grab them by the shirt and say, look, you've held me back long enough. Now you go sit over there and shut up. But we rewrite the script in that hypnosis part and we eliminate or reprogram in ways that are more productive, more in alignment with who the person actually came here to be. And I mean, I work with pretty much any behavioral type change that people want, from smoking cessation, compulsive gamblers, people that want to change their relationship with alcohol. Um, the biggies are life purpose, relationships, and career relative to the Akashic record. But so much of what I believe holds people back is a false sense that they were gifted, we'll call it, we'll go charitably and call it gifting, that they're not enough, that they're not good enough, they're not worthy. In terms of relationships, there are an awful lot of people walking around with a very false sense of, in order for them to find an unconditional loving relationship, they have to be nearly perfect in every way. And if they're not feeling particularly loved, they need to look in the mirror and go, well, how am I sucking today that I'm not worthy of finding that kind of unconditional love? Well, that's just absolutely wrong-headed from start to finish. Just as you're sitting there breathing, you're worthy and deserving of wonderful, joyful, unconditional love. And so to break that old mold of, oh man, I've got to be perfect in every way. Perfect is not even on the menu. We're humans, okay? For me, mid-January to early February, some years, I can walk on water, but it's because I'm in Michigan and the water is frozen. But beyond that, I'm going to sink like a stone. And so getting out of that mindset of perfection, no, we do the best we know how to do in any given moment. And the grace part comes in when we remember that everybody in our lives is largely doing the best they know how to do from where they are, even when they suck. So we either learn how to or how not to from everybody that we encounter in our lives. And a book by Carolyn Mace, and Mace is Myss, Sacred Contracts, was an incredible paradigm shifting collection of thoughts for me in that department, recognizing that the difficult people in my life, and I would in the top five, of course, my father would have been probably number one in terms of difficulty. Um, but when I realized that he loved me enough to be the SOB that he was, to help me become who I am, despite all my human imperfections, and I own those, man. There's no sense in trying to deny them. But that he and I had a contract that that was who he was going to be in my life. And so I really did ask for it. Now, as a young teen or in my early 20s, I would have argued that point probably pretty viciously, but it's true. And so that made it easier for me to get to a place of acceptance and appreciation. We never we never reconciled before he passed, but we've had some good conversations since, and I think we're both good with where we are. Um, and it's kind of a fun thing to realize that when our friends, our family, our loved ones cross over, our pets, our animals, when they cross over, that's not the end. We still get to hang out with them. We still get to talk to them. We live on a farm. It's my wife's farm that she's been on forever. And we have horses and donkeys and goats and dogs and cats. I brought a parrot to the party and a cat that used to be one of the tenants in the home I used to own and occupy. And she's kind of the queen of everything here. Um, but some of the animals that have gone on still, they still come and snuggle on my leg while I'm watching television in the evening. And little Eleanor, who was we always thought that she was one of the dimmer bulbs in the pack. Um, Turns out in spirit, she's become kind of the alpha of the group. And she's pretty excited that with her, she was a Maltese Shih Tzu, so she was just a little thing. Um, but that she gets to be the boss. She's loving that maybe more than she should. And it's so cute because she looks up at me with these adoring eyes and she says, "Oh, Daddy, I'm so happy we still get to hang out and talk." She didn't have any, I didn't even know. So, but the whole idea of that through the veil communication doesn't make the passing any easier, but it does give you hope. And when our Great Dane left, Sherman, last thing I said to him was, "Okay, buddy, years from now when I come, I want you in the front row, and I'm going to require a big old Sherman Great Dane hug." And he assured me that he would be there to deliver that. And while I'm in no hurry to get there, I will look forward to when that moment comes. So, but we really do shape the reality of what we live by the thoughts that we hold, by the words that we deliver. I believe that the words that we actually speak are more powerful than the thoughts that we just keep to ourselves. But I also think that it's incumbent upon us to, when we find ourselves going down the road of what they call stinking thinking, that we stop ourselves and we go, whoop, let's rewind the tape a little bit. Let's reframe that to what we really want to say and affirm, and then go forward. Because you can, I forget. I think it was in the Jose Silva Ultramind stuff. This used to be mind control, and then the cult, the Moonies, and all of that. So they changed it to Ultramind. I think it's back to mind control now. I think that was one of Jose Silva's things, where when you find yourself thinking something and no, you just say cancel, cancel, and it's like it erases it from the ether somehow. Um, but even that is something that's available to everybody. Okay, so as you're getting ready to go to bed at night, you've got this wonderful curved screen on the inside of your forehead. Create a video of the reality that you want, and then play that video every night. That's the last input that your subconscious mind has. And it takes it as an assignment that all night long, while you're sleeping, it's working toward bringing that into your reality. And when I first became familiar with Silva's work, it would have been 1979, I think. And I read the book and I thought, oh, this is really cool. But I was kind of skeptical. So I thought, okay, I'm going to program for three ridiculous. Well, speaking of Betty, and here she is. Smile for the camera, honey. She's a beautiful Russian gray and the most affectionate cat I think I've ever known. Anyhow, I thought I'm going to program for three ridiculous things because if they come true, I'm going to know that this stuff actually works. So at that point, I woke up at the same time every day you could have set a clock by me. I generally woke up grumpy. And so I programmed that I would wake up 30 minutes early and that I would be in a ridiculously good mood. And then the kicker was that when I was shaving, I would find myself whistling Dixie. Now, I'm not a guy that tends to whistle Dixie under any circumstances. So I thought, well, that's the outlier. And so I think Silva said to program it, watch the video 4 or 5 nights in a row. So I did and didn't think anything more about it until one morning I'm whistling Dixie and shaving. And it wasn't a conscious decision to whistle Dixie. It just was happening. And I looked at the clock, and sure enough, I'm 30 minutes early. And then I looked and yeah, and I am in a really good mood today. So that was probably my biggest, strongest exposure to the power of my mind. And so think about the people you know, or maybe, I hope not, but maybe the people you see when you look in the mirror who are constantly saying things like, oh, I'm so sick and tired of blah, 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 blah. And they're always sick and they're always tired. Every word we say is an affirmation. There's an old hymn. What was it? Our thoughts are prayers. It's really true. We're placing an order with the universe, with the creator. And so with the I'm sick and tired people, I can only imagine that the universe looks at them and goes, I don't know why they want to be sick and tired all the time again, but our job is to deliver what they ask for. So boom, there's an order of sick and tired. So, and other people that are just never a sick a day in their lives. It doesn't matter what the virus du jour is or what pandemic is going on. They're just like, it's like they're wearing armor or something. Well, you look at how they talk, you look at what they believe, and I think there's a direct connect there. So for me, the process of being in mid-October, I was in real estate for 30 years, and it was pounded into our heads that the new year began on October 1, because what we were laying the groundwork for October, November, December was going to be what our income was going to be starting in January. So it was like, okay, get it going, get the listings, get the buyers going, all of that sort of thing. But I think for all of us in real life, the seeds that we plant today are the things that are going to be growing under the snow, maybe not in New Mexico, depending on where you are and how much snow you get, but so that in the spring they're going to come up and they're going to bloom and we're going to have something to harvest. Well, what do you want to harvest? So I make a list. I make a list for the end of the year about the positives and the completions of what was probably on my goal list last October and November. But that's about allowing myself to celebrate whatever distance I've traveled in the year. We don't tend to do that because, I don't know, we're all afraid our hand is going to break off, I think, if we occasionally give ourselves a pat on the back. I've never known anybody whose hand fell off, so I encourage judicious self patting on the back if it's earned. But I think it's important to recognize, wow, where was I in January? What was going on? And what are the things? What have I learned? What have I done? How many dumpsters have I filled mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally of baggage and garbage that really is not worthy of a seat at my table when the new year gets here? All of that sort of stuff. But then that broad stroke vision of what do I want 2026 to look like? Now, I was taught that when you make goal lists like that, you always have one bullet point that says this or better, because there could be goodness that's lined up for me that I'm not even smart enough or tuned in enough to realize. And that allows the universe to deliver that regardless. And when I talk with people with clients about relationships. And they're like, oh, yeah, I've been divorced for 10 years and I just can't meet anybody. And I say, have you made your shopping list? What are the character traits? What are the things about that perfect loving partner that you'd like to welcome into your life? And of course, everything framed in the affirmative. You don't write, I don't want anybody that beats me. I don't want a drunk and I don't want a smoker, or you're going to get a drunk who smokes and beats you. But you write a healthy, sane, sober, loving individual. You turn it toward the affirmative. But again, this or better. And I was married for 30 years and then single for, I don't know, 5 probably. And I had my list. And well, here we go. This is that part of I didn't know I was going to say that until I heard myself say it. Um, I knew that there was a woman walking toward me. And I knew that we knew each other in another time and in another place. And the crowd that I talked to told me that when we worked together approximately 1,500 years ago, that we were so passionately, hotly in love that we needed 1,500 years to cool off before we could come back together, which I thought, well, that's kind of a fun image at 55 years old. And I was on Match.com and I called this woman that was walking toward me Gwen. I have no idea where I came up with that, but that was what I called her. And every night when I go to bed, I had a big, big rose quartz heart. And I would lay that on my heart. And then my higher self would talk to Gwen. No idea who she was, where she was, when she was coming, but I trusted and I allowed. And when we were done talking, then I would lay that heart rose quartz where her heart would be were she in bed with me. That rose quartz now has sat on my wife's nightstand for 13 years. And we met on Match. She was on vacation in Florida. And so we emailed back and forth. Match never lets your real identity or email slip through. But a couple of days in, it did. And I said, oh my God, I know you. I'm remembering a banana daiquiri party in the 70s at Ramblewood Apartments. And she wrote back and said, are you Eric from Alma? And I said, well, I was then, but I'm Eric from Grand Rapids now. Her husband, who had passed away, was a golf buddy and drinking buddy of mine back in the 70s. And later I remembered when I met her and she and David were dating, I thought, ooh, what is she doing with him? But being a good friend and a gentleman, I didn't say anything, didn't do anything. But like 38 years later, I think David probably pulled a few strings to bring us together. And the first time we spoke on the telephone and I heard her voice, I said, oh my God, that's Gwen. I'd recognize that voice anywhere. So I flew down to Florida for a few days. And second or third day at dinner, I said, I'd marry you on the beach this week, but our family and friends would just absolutely have a stroke. Why don't we wait until the end of August? And that's what we did. So, did I create her out of nothing? Nope. But the power of my mind, the strength of my intention, the shopping list that I had made up, and she had the farm with all the animals, and I had a suburban house on a city lot. I knew that all of her animals would not fit on my lot. So I moved out to the farm. While we were packing everything up, I found my list. And that was kind of fun. Okay, in the context of death. Yep, yep, yep. There maybe were 1 or 2 minor bullet points on my list that I couldn't honestly check the box for. So, is there power in that? Is it only about attracting a partner? No, it's about every single aspect of your life. You plan your garden this time of year for next year so you can get the bulbs in the ground that you want to see in the spring. And if this thing needs to be moved over there, you're doing all that preparatory work. Well, think about your life in that same manner. What did you harvest this year in your life? Was it a harvest that you were happy with? Are there ideas on how maybe you'd like to see a different crop next year? So what are you going to do? What are you going to plant? So that when the snow melts and those wonderful little shoots of snowdrops and hyacinths start poking up through the ground, you're going to be on your way to watching that beauty unfold and bring you the harvest that you've always wanted. It truly, truly, truly is within your grasp. Thoughts are things, only choose the good ones. And I think I'll put a fork in it there. But I'm certainly open to questions. Um, whatever else. And I hope there was something of value in all those words.
Very much
My
so.
name is Webster, and I get my words wholesale, so I tend to use a lot of them.
Awesome. I love it. Thanks so much. Does anybody have any questions? If you do, feel free.
Or comments, even, whatever.
No, I really appreciate the the clarity of the list, the video, like running the picture and the example of how it worked in your life. I think I hadn't thought of trying to testing manifestation on something that I'm not sure about just to prove that's a really cool idea. So
Well, and Ruth, I suspect you see this with your hypnosis work. A lot of it is directing the vision of what they're seeing in their heads to be help them have that become their reality. But I'm happy that they need me and are willing to pay me to help them with that. But in a lot of cases, people have that ability to create that in their own mind and manifest it into their own lives.
We're doing it
So,
all the time, and your story was a lot of fun.
yeah. Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. And my life is largely a lot of fun as well. So, yeah. And Betty, you can't see her here, but Betty's curled up asleep on my desk. Um, let me see if I can. There she is right there.
Mhm.
This is actually, she lets me use her office when I have work to do because she's kind of staked this out as her little space.
Mhm.
So
Well, I had one like
I'm kind of glad we're doing it this way because as the other presenters were talking about what they're doing, I'm like, oh, I'd like to sit through that one. So it all works out.
perfect. Well, so let's move on. Thank you so much, and we'll have time for some questions at the end, I believe. So, Sandra, would you like to take over?
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to start with just a little bit, and then we're going to go into sound. And so to start with, from the quantum physics point of view, everything is vibration. It's just operating at different levels, different speeds, and so that's a big effect. And since I work in vibration kind of throughout what I do, and am very aware of it, I would say. So I'm going to just start with some simple things. Is sound works primordially. So it works with those aspects of oneself that are so deep within us and are so much of where we've come from, what we've come through. And sound has that capacity to reach that really quite quickly. It takes 6 minutes to entrain to a sound, whether that's the neighbors screaming or a beautiful song or sound, whatever it is, it takes us 6 minutes to entrain to actual sound. And then we can expand that into vibration, which is how do we vibrate? Waking up and asking, how am I vibrating today? What's in my vibration? Can really inform our day. So I'd like to ask, and if you could just kind of go, hey, how many people have experienced sound as a healing modality? Not just as the massage therapist sounds a few things on a bowl or a yoga instructor does, but has anyone experienced full sound as healing? Great. And what forms? Could I ask what forms, if you just speak them out? Meaning bowls, crystal, metal, tuning forks. Did you do
All of the above.
Yeah, and audio sound mantra, neural pets.
beautiful? And thank you for bringing that up.
And
I teach Kundalini yoga as well, and mantra basically changes our mind. If we do mantra properly, it changes our mind. Where the tongue hits the palate, it actually shifts our consciousness, depending on the mantra that we're chanting at that time. So thank you for sharing that. So I would like to just have you start to breathe into your belly. I feel like we're just going to go into some sound here, and just breathe into your belly wherever you're sitting. If you can relax and get comfortable, that will make a huge difference for you. Just kind of let the breath move through you and soften you. So soften your shoulders. Let your shoulders kind of drop down. Soften your belly. And if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, please do. And just allow yourself to notice where you are. Allow your tongue to come towards the roof of your mouth, not all the way back towards the throat, but just at that front palate. Let it rest. That opens us through the crown. And I'd like you to put your feet on the floor. Notice, if you wish, I'm sitting cross-legged, so but just notice your feet. And as you notice your feet, begin to just notice how they feel. Is there any sensation, any vibration? Can you hear this?
I think there might be some sound manipulation.
Can everyone mute?
Yeah, but I think if you in your audio settings, it might help if you changed. Let's see.
Original sound for musicians. I
Okay,
think it's on the upper right.
I'm not seeing that.
if you click the audio
I
settings, if you scroll down
and
a little bit, there's a check audio profile, and original sound for musicians sounds like the right.
um hmm.
Do you see audio settings?
I am in audio settings. It's just not giving me exactly what I want. Let's
There's
see.
also Zoom background noise removal that I think you can turn off if you don't see the original sound from musicians.
I don't see that at all.
Okay.
Give me one more moment.
You have to scroll down to get to those.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I see, for me, I see speaker, then microphone, and then audio profile.
Derek, will that show up on share screen or
I,
Uh,
I don't think Zoom settings do if I share screen.
yeah, and I don't actually know how to quite to do that. And I don't see anything about yeah. Let's see. Give it a minute. Um,
Yeah, if we all mute, but I think it did sound like Zoom tends to try and suppress noises that it thinks are noises. And
yeah,
so um and I'm not sure if I can do anything as the host.
I don't know that you can, and I think I just want to let's try it. If each of you could mute, I did try something, so let's see if this changes it. Please let me know if you can hear this. Better?
The initial gong was a little loud. I mean, when you
I
first hit
did
it
that
gently,
intentionally.
it rang through. When you hit it a little harder, it was suppressed briefly. That's what I heard.
Okay. Thank you.
But right
Thank
now I hear it. It's nice. It sounds nice.
Uh-huh. So sorry for that interruption. Thank you for your patience. Nice full breathing again. Let the breath fill you. Again, soften those shoulders, soften your belly. Just say hello to your system, asking your system to just allow you to be here. Closing your eyes down if that works. And you can hear that in a good way. Is that helpful?
I'm afraid it's not coming through. I'll hear a bit of it and then it'll fade out. I'm not sure if anybody else is hearing more, but the extended ringing isn't. I'm not hearing.
Yeah, I'm not either. I get the initial and then it cuts out.
Okay. I am sorry for the late. I am unsure how to change that. Let's see.
Why don't we let's switch and great intro. I really apologize because you really set that up beautifully. But why don't we go to Sterling and let him take over, and then you and I can see if we can figure it out kind of behind the scenes. And
I think
then
I have it. Let's try one more time and then we
okay.
can um, just kind of go from there. All right, let's just see. Yeah? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Nice again. Back to breath. We keep coming back to breath, don't we? Since it is life, let's do that. So nice breathing, allowing your belly to fill, allowing your receptivity to show itself to you. Wiggle your feet a little to get you back Noticing your earthing. And breathe in, nice and easy. Bring your attention to the base of your spine and allow yourself to connect with the center of the earth. From the base of your spine. And once here, allow that energy at the center of the earth, that vibration, to come up through your feet and legs, through your fingertips, all the way through your torso, all the way up through the top of your head, through your crown, all the way to the highest of high for you. Bring your breath into that and notice yourself there. When you're ready, allow yourself to bring that energy or allow that energy down through your crown, coming through your head, your neck, all the way through your torso to just below your navel. And right there, take a nice breath in. Inhaling, suspend your breath. Draw your pelvic floor up and relax. Exhale. Thank you.
Awesome. That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Way to stick with it. I'm so glad it that was awesome.
Right on.
Does anybody have any questions for Sandra or any comments?
I've got a question. I was noticing that some of the time, most of the sounds I was hearing were a single tone that would get louder and softer and do a single vibration. But it seemed like there were some that were like a tenor, like a vibration within itself, kind of like wow, 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 that kind of thing. Is that was anybody else hearing that? Is that part of the deal?
So it is part of the deal. So each of these bowls, there's a fundamental note, and then
Okay.
there are four overtones. And the overtones kind of go that wah wah, and some are stronger than the others. So yeah, that's what you were hearing, and that is what these do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think the way it manifested for me is I had some sounds that were coming out of my bookshelf.
Yes,
The
yes.
initial sound would come out and then I'd get a reverberation back at me, which was a little startling at first, but it was really cool.
Yeah.
That's really an amazing thing about sound is it can be everywhere at once, even though it doesn't seem like it. So yeah, it was hitting your bookcase and then it was coming back. And that is part of what sound does in working with land. And I don't want to take too much time. So Derek, if I need to stop, I can do that. Are we good or do I need to stop?
No, I think can you answer in a minute or two?
Yes.
Perfect.
So basically, like I noticed I was invited to work with land, and so there was a group, and we hiked into the mountains in a certain area of Colorado, and we everybody got comfy. I set up the bowls, and noticed took people kind of into a meditative state. And there I was noticing, because we were surrounded by mountains on all sides. And the one that was in front of us, the sound would get there and just drop. It couldn't penetrate initially. It just would get there and drop, get there and drop. And so I started to play with it as I'm also playing with the people who I'm with. And there was a point where the sound could go, and it opened through the whole valley when that happened. And on the way out, when we completed, well, before we completed, when I brought everyone back and they came back, one woman was looking up and we had an eagle circling us above. And then on our hike out, the person who had invited me, I asked her if she had noticed anything, and she's like, well, there was this moment, and I explained what I just explained to you, and she said to me, she said, you know the history of this area? And I said, no. And I never research a place because I want it to be pure. It turned out that there was a lot of fighting. The army was there, and there was a lot of fighting. And that made so much sense, because that was what, we don't think of mountains or land always as holding or bracing against, but that mountain was blocking energy to protect, to feel protected in some way. I mean, that's my imagination sharing that. But when it opened through the whole valley. And it was amazing how the sound shifted a lot of things. And so, yeah. So your bookshelf was being the mountain.
Excellent. I think Sophia is going to be at the next mini summit, and I know she does animal communication, but she also does healing of spaces, and that's been important to her. I imagine you'd enjoy connecting with her if you get a chance. But,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
but no, I think the no, I really appreciate it, and for me, I felt like it was nice to notice how certain sounds would land in certain places within me. And but I think, yeah, like there's so many different ways that things can just elevate us. And
Yeah.
we don't have to pick one.
But one of the things I really love about sound is because of its primordial nature, like it's been used since the beginning of human civilization, whether it's shaking a reed or stomping or, some percussion aspect, or voice. The thing that's so interesting about sound is it can encompass everything in so many ways. And it can be so subtle or so powerful all at once. And so I find that continually fascinating.
Awesome, perfect. Well, thank you so much. I loved it. That was beautiful. Sterling,
Yes,
are you ready to take you
sure,
ready?
sure, yeah.
All right,
Okay, all right, so consciousness, that's the subject for today. In order to really understand consciousness, especially within yourself, or as I was talking about the astrological wheel, because we're talking about your natal chart, you have to really understand in a small part how it works throughout the universe, essentially. So consciousness starts in what we call the all. So the theory of the all is all and the all is in all, sort of like the unknowable, unreachable God type thing. And then how it divides itself. So essentially, the all divides made a division within itself. Number one, mathematically, 1, 2, and 3-dimensional reality, which is what we live in. And it created what we call the logos, which is the word, and which is guidance. But it created a firmament at the same time, okay, which we call the nous, okay, which is the word made manifest. And it pours through that firmament energy we call the energy, the spirit of the universe, or a lot of people, Pythagoras, people of that nature, called it aether. And people like Agrippa call it the quintessence. And it pours itself into what we call the soul of the world. Okay, and the soul of the world is complete potential. Okay, these 4 divisions within us become consciousness. Consciousness, of course, the logos is total consciousness, and consciousness itself is total awareness. Okay, and it divides into 4, and it splits into what everybody considers the 4 elements: fire, air, water, and earth. The logos itself is the air aspect. The air aspect in the chart would be Libra. Libra is on the descendant of the chart. So if you take your wheel and you take a line and you divide the wheel horizontally, okay, from left to right, the left part we call the ascendant, the right part we call the descendant. The descendant is Libra, that's air. That's where your conscience lies. And your conscience is spiritual awareness. That's part of the division. Your ascendant is your subconscious, which is habitual awareness. Okay. Then if you take a line and you go vertically from top to bottom, the top part we call the midheaven. The midheaven is Capricorn, which is earth. Earth is self-awareness. That's your conscious. If you take that all the way to the bottom, that is what we call the nadir. Okay, and the nadir is your unconscious, which is instinctual awareness. Okay, so the whole thing is complete awareness when you get to that phase of it. Now, when we're talking about the different aspects of awareness and the different aspects, we're talking about the natural wheel when we say Capricorn, which is earth, is your conscious. The nadir, which is Cancer, is your unconscious and water. We talked about Libra being your conscience, which is air. And then your subconscious, which is your ascendant, would be Aries, which is fire. Okay. So those break the wheel into 4 equal parts to it. Now, going back to something that was talked about earlier by Eric, when you can take the wheel and you can also break that into what I call its design, which would be the water aspect, and it's the season of winter, and it starts with your conscious. So your conscious is how, when you begin to design anything, you are self-aware, because that's what your conscious is. It's self-awareness. Self-aware of what it is that you want to do. What is it that you want to do for the year? And that is where your conscious comes in, and you begin to design that. Okay, and you take that through winter. So in each season is split into 3 parts, what we call cardinal, fixed, and mutable. So cardinal energy is initiating, okay, or beginning. Fixed energy is what we call the growth aspect. It's the building aspect. And then mutable energy is the completion aspect. So that's how the seasons work. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end to each season. And you work your way through the design phase. And as soon as you hit Aries, Aries takes you into what we call the development phase. Okay, and that is spring. And in spring, you get to develop what you designed in the winter. You then develop into the spring. And then when you hit Cancer, Cancer is the beginning of summer. Summer is the growth stage. And your unconscious actually is what moves you into the growth stage after you've done your design and your development. You unconsciously move that into the growth stage of the year. Okay, that goes through its 3 beginning, middle, and end phase. That take you to Libra, which is your conscience. That's the harvest phase. So your entire year cycles through that every single year. And you can actually use that to plan out what it is that you're going to do for the year. how you want to design it, how you want to develop it, how do you want it to grow, and how you want it to harvest. Okay, so that's how that particular cycle works. I thought it was interesting when he was bringing that up earlier that it kind of ties into that whole phase. Okay, and that's how the mind actually works through consciousness. So when you take that macro of soul of the universe, spirit of the universe, nous and logos, and you factor that into your mind itself, your mind, the fire aspect of your mind is spirit. And it's not like a spirit that you see. It's more like, I've got spirit. Yes, I do. I've got spirit. How about you? So it's that drive, right? That ambition, that motivation. Okay. That's the fire aspect of the mind. And then you move into the intelligence aspect, which is the air aspect of the mind. Okay. So you've got spirit, you've got intelligence. Then you move into the water aspect of the mind, which is the soul. Okay. And the soul is, again, all of your potential. Anything you ever possibly could be. Your spirit are the choices you make to unlock those potentials. Okay. And your intelligence is what guides it. And then the housing of the entire thing is the brain. That would be the earth aspect. That would be the nous. And that would be the actual physical brain with the neurons in it. And your body, that directs your body and how it moves and what it's doing, what it's doing. So at a micro level within all people, that's how all of those different aspects or forces of the universe work through us. Okay. And finding them in your chart. Okay. The natal chart starts with Aries. The natal chart starts with these 4 cardinal points. And we call them cardinal energy because they're the beginnings of everything. So the beginning of fire is Aries. The beginning of water is Cancer. The beginning of air is Libra. And the beginning of earth is Capricorn. And those 4 points are what are in control in a natal chart. Now, everybody's chart is different because everybody has a different ascendant for the most part. Okay. My ascendant is Pisces, not Aries. Okay. And when you're thinking about the sign energy, you have to understand that fire is expression, air is interaction, water is sensitivity, and earth is substance. And when you're thinking of cardinal, fixed, and mutable, cardinal energy is personal, fixed energy is creative, mutable energy is spiritual. Okay. Now, when we look at it that way, when you're looking at what the signs are, Aries is personal because it's cardinal and it's expressive because it's fire. So Aries means personal expression. That's what it means. So in the natural wheel, your subconscious and spring begins through, and your development phase, by the way, begins through personal expression. In your chart, you have to look at what your ascendant is to understand how your development phase begins. Mine, again, is Pisces. So it's sensitivity because it's water, and it's spiritual because it's mutable. So my development stage for me begins with spiritual sensitivity and then moves into personal expression because Aries follows it, and then moves into Taurus, which is earth, so it's substance, fixed, so it's creative substance. Okay. And when you can look at the wheel that way, it gives you a more practical idea of how your phases work in order to understand what you need to do and how you need to look at it when you're moving through each one. So mine begins with spiritual sensitivity, where a colleague of mine who is a Gemini ascendant, and Gemini is mutable, so it's still spiritual, but it's air, so it's interaction. His developmental stage works through spiritual interaction as opposed to mine, which is spiritual sensitivity. So mine is all about feeling, his is all about processing. Okay. And it gives you, those things give you clues into how not just consciousness, but that whole development phase works and design phase. So when I go into my next phase, which would be the growth phase for me, my growth phase begins with Gemini. So my growth phase begins with spiritual interaction. And then when I go to my harvest phase, it's Virgo. So that is spiritual substance. okay? Presence or purpose. So then when I go into my design phase, when I start my design phase, for me, that is Sagittarius. So my design phase begins with, it's spiritual. It begins with spiritual expression. Okay. And everybody's is going to be a little different depending on, and you start, essentially, the easiest way to start is where your ascendant is, to find that. And it allows you to understand how you move in and through different phases of your development, your developmental process. And it doesn't just mean the year, it means any process that when you develop anything, if you're going to write a book, if you're going to do a song, if you're going to create anything, or if you even want to manifest something, that tells you how you have to work each phase individually for yourself in order for it to work out correctly. Because if you try to start in a phase that is not a part of that particular cycle, it's not going to work out well. Because you're not utilizing the energy that's there. And that's essentially what that chart, the wheel of your chart is doing. It's telling you how you work. And the better you can understand how you work and how your consciousness works, the better you can understand yourself. And if you can't understand yourself, you can't understand really anybody else either, whether you're a healer or anyone else. If you don't know how it works with you, you don't know how it works with anyone else. So it's always good to start with yourself before you're working on somebody else. Now, when we're talking about like the sound stuff that we just did, that was awesome. I love that. So we're talking about resonance at that point, right? So when you're talking about all of these different energies that are working through, especially when we're talking about like sound, so we're talking about air again, air being your spiritual awareness. We're talking about, and that's exactly what's happening when you're working with air energy. And when you're working with any of those energies, you've got earth and water. Okay. You're going to refract energy through water. You're going to reflect energy off air. Okay. And we talked about that big firmament in the beginning. Well, there's an infinite number of finite firmaments that exist within three-dimensional reality, or where we live. So, and consciousness works through all of them. As I've said this to a few students before, that consciousness, even in a chair, is there because the chair knows it's not part of the floor. If it didn't, it would move, the energy would meld, and the chair would meld through the floor. So at a certain level, that chair knows it's not the floor, and that's what firmaments do. And they can also work like, as one of my students puts it, Russian nesting dolls. They can come on top. So like, I'm an individual person, you're an individual person, all of us are individual people. Yet within us, we all have blood cells, we all have cells of every nature. We have skeletal systems, we have circulatory systems, we have digestive systems. All of those systems work again with, some of them are unconscious, some of them are conscious, some of them are subconscious, some of them are conscious. And when we get into the conscience and the spiritual awareness, we're talking about things that, when you talk about your descendant in astrology, you're talking about things that you brought in, and those intimate truths, things that you just know, right from wrong. Okay, so morals, ethics, and then you get that through spiritual awareness. That's what your descendant is all about. And again, your subconscious awareness is more habitual awareness. Patterns that you've developed that you don't even have to think about. People who can type. When you get in your car and you jump in your car and you're driving down the road and you end up home and you don't even remember getting there. That's again a subconscious. It's not unconscious, because if there was a red light or a stop sign, you would stop. So you're not completely unconscious of it, but you don't have to consciously think about it while you're going there. You don't have to be self-aware of where you're going when you're driving, because your subconscious takes over. Like those times where you're thinking about something and all of a sudden you find yourself in your driveway after you've gotten out of work. You're like, wow, I don't even really remember driving home. Because I've done that. It's like, ooh, that's kind of weird, but that's how it works. Now, at the same time, when you've got those horizontal lines, they're working through oppositions. And what an opposition is it's a complete polarity, right? 180 degrees. from each other. Okay. And an opposition is coming to awareness and then acting on it. Okay. We do that with our unconscious and our conscious all the time. Okay. Well, most of the times when our unconscious wants to do things or make us aware of things, it does it through dreams. A lot of times deep hypnosis. A lot of things have to be drawn out of your unconscious to your conscious to get it to flow out. And a lot of times you need help doing that. Okay. Now with your subconscious, not so much. Those are just habits. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. You can change some of those things too. Okay. And then your conscious is that little voice that tells you yes or no, what's right and what's wrong. And whether you listen to it or not is up to you. Okay. But one of the interesting things is that because it's air, consciousness or the conscience itself is total consciousness. And when total consciousness divides itself into four, it stays in the conscience and lets the rest of them do their work. But it's actually in control of the entire thing. So your spiritual awareness is actually in control of every other part of the consciousness on the wheel, which is kind of a weird thing to think about, but that's how it works. But again, when we're talking about refraction and reflection, okay, it's energy that's being poured through. And that energy we call masculine, and that energy is either what we call the spirit of the universe or the logos, and it's fire and air. Fire, they're both projective. That's why they're called masculine, because they're projective in. Now, the soul of the universe and the nous are earth and water. They're both feminine. And it's what they're doing and how that energy that's being projected in, how it's working through them. Because it's going to bounce off earth energy. And it's going to go in at an angle through water energy and change direction. Which is exactly why when you put light through a prism, it splits into different colors. It changes the frequencies. Okay. And one of the things another thing that I really enjoyed about the sound vibration stuff is that there are two aspects of it that actually because I have a 6-year curriculum. In my 5th year, or I should say my 4th year, we get into air. So we get into cymatics, and chromaesthesia. And chromaesthesia is where you take sound energy, and each sound energy is a particular color hertz. They match. So you can actually make color waves through sound and vice versa. And it's awesome because it's manifesting emotions, manifesting thoughts, manifesting even the physical and the spiritual through sound. That's how you do it. Because you go on these sites and you see these things about you need to change your hertz to what 430 hertz. And it's like, okay, how do you visualize that, right? Well, it's brown. And that's how you visualize it. So even with manifestation, when you're talking about visualizing things and turning one energy into another, you do it through color. And the way that you do that is, again, through like color wheels. And then you're changing the frequency of energy. And you can do that through sound. You can do that through visualization. But you can also do just the opposite. And you can change color vibrations into sound, following the same thing, by understanding the subtle differences between the frequencies of the color and how they match the frequencies of different notes as far as music is concerned. So that I find rather interesting when we were going through that whole thing. That was fun. But again, with the wheel, when you're going through your consciousness stuff, you have to determine where you're at on the wheel. Okay. And where you fall in. Because if I try to start my development process, let's say through Aries, which is personal interaction, for me, it's not going to work because that's the creative aspect of my development phase, and it's not the initiating aspect of my development phase. I have to focus on more empathy, more feeling, when I get into my developmental phase than I do personally expressing something. Okay. Or worrying about the structure of it in the middle of it, which would be Taurus, because that's creative substance. That is the end of mine. So I have to worry about structure when I'm completing my developmental phase and moving into my growth phase, not in the middle of my developmental phase. And those kind of things give you clues, again, as to how you work and why some things that work for other people will not work for you. Because in their chart, they have to begin in a different area than you do when you do yours. You can work with them, but for you, it has to begin in a different area. If that makes any, I don't know if that really made a whole lot of sense, but I know we keep, I got a time construct here, so I'm trying to move through this as fast as I can. So when we're talking about that, all of these things are working together. So you can be unconsciously conscious of things, and that would be like lucid dreaming. When you get into lucid dreaming, you are then becoming consciously aware of your unconscious, because that's what a lucid dream is. When it's the other way around, you're unconsciously conscious instead of consciously unconscious. And it's understanding how to work those things and how they all interact together and how they're interacting together to really understand where you are in consciousness, especially if you're getting into, deep trance meditations, when you get into psychic enhancement, trying to learn those things, and then trying to understand, I guess, the subtle differences between empathy and intuition, because intuition is air. It's a process that you mentally go through after you've absorbed energy in, which is empathy. And most people think they're the same thing, and they're not. They're completely two different elements. So it gives you a sense of how you need to understand how you work, essentially. And your consciousness is the beginning of the blueprint. And the rest of the chart is, again, the rest of the blueprint for who you are and how you work. And I think I can end there, because I know that we were kind of on a time constraint. So there you go.
Thanks so much. No, that was a lot. I'm trying to. There were some great pieces in there, and I'll have to sit with it. But thank you.
Okay.
Really fascinating.
Mhm.
Does anybody have any questions for Stirling?
I do. So you talked about the birth chart and you were talking about like where you start and what the different aspects of starting and coming around,
Mhm.
different seasons, etc. Now, does that change with your progress chart?
With your progress chart,
Yeah.
it will.
Okay.
With a progress chart, I don't really do a lot of progress charts. And it's mainly because that's more of a modern thing that was with astrology. And for me, your natal chart is your blueprint. And I
Okay.
don't think your blueprint changes like that, because if it did, at this point, my ascendant would have gone through Aquarius and some other things, and that has never felt right for me. My ascendant has always felt the same, which would have been Pisces. So, but yes, if you work with progress charts, yes, that would change, and that can change. So, yes, I
Great.
guess would be the answer to your question.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, you did.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
I would just like to say that was fascinating and thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Ruth, are you ready?
I am.
All right. I give you the stage.
And do we have time, or how much time do I have?
Well, that's up to everybody. I think we are a little bit over,
Yeah.
but I think at least 10, 15 minutes, if that works for everybody.
I could zip through 10 minutes without hurrying. Everybody looks like they're pretty restive, so try not to make that any worse. Okay, everybody, let's just jump right in and wiggle your fingers and toes. That'll help expel some of that energy of it being 8:35. And take a nice deep breath. And as you release that breath, just let your shoulders drop. Let gravity take over. And then second guess your comfort. Are you comfortable? Do you need to adjust your posture? Do you need to sit back in the chair? Do whatever it takes to make you feel good, but keep your spine straight so your energy will flow. And I was planning tonight to talk about your superpowers. And I have been orienting my clients to their superpowers. And um, part of the orientation to superpowers is just hearing over and over again that you have them, because most of us spend our formative years being told that we don't have any superpowers, or we could hit a baseball or something, but very, very few. The truth is, you've seen your superpowers. In this group, we're probably very likely that we've seen the intuition that we all have, the things that we know without even knowing that we know them. We know that we have at times healed from things that we weren't supposed to heal from. We avoided problems that we were supposed to have. So those are all indications of your superpowers. So let's do some exercises to sort of get into the mindset of just opening that door a little bit more to your superpowers and opening that door to your higher self. So I've reminded you of some things that you have experienced, those times that you've experienced your sacred humanness, the times that you knew things you couldn't possibly know, the times you knew things were going to happen, the times you knew the words that were going to come out of somebody's mouth, the times you just knew something was right and nobody could tell you otherwise, even though you couldn't explain it logically, because it isn't logical. This part of yourself often called the superconscious, and it's not really noisy. It doesn't talk very loudly. It doesn't hit you with a gut feeling. You have to really pay attention to it. And the best way to pay attention to it is to get really quiet. And the last thing we do most days is get really quiet. We look at screens, we listen to music, we talk, we do all those wonderful things. But when do we ever get quiet and listen? Some of us meditate, but meditation takes time. I like things that are quick and easy. So one of the best ways you can get quiet is to get out of your head. And how do you get out of your head? That's part of my body. I can't get out of my head. But you can bring your attention out of your head and bring it into your heart. So I'm going to ask you right now to bring your attention into your heart for a little bit. The easiest way to keep your attention there when it wants to go back up in your head and chatter some more is just to keep your hand on your heart. So here's where we're going to stay for a little bit. And just imagine that you can breathe in and out of your heart. And as odd as that sounds, it's pretty natural for most people to adopt this breathing and just pretend you could breathe in your chest and out of your chest. Into your chest and out of your chest. And the beauty of this, it's a heart math technique, and it helps you perceive with your heart. And your heart is fully capable, as much so as the brain in your head, of perceiving things. In fact, it's the first responder. When we meet each other, when we look in each other's eyes, your heart responds before your brain does, and then tells your brain what to think. So bring your intelligence down into your heart. That's not the total answer to accessing your superpowers, but it's a good way to get out of the intellect, out of figuring things out, and allowing some quiet. And what's the quiet for? The quiet's for the part of you that creates. We talk about thoughts or things. Not all thoughts are created equal. The creation of reality takes place in a part of your mind that you're not constantly aware of. And it would probably drive you crazy if you were constantly aware of it. But you can just allow it to exist. Just recognize that it's there. And if it doesn't talk to you in clear declarative English sentences tonight, it might in the future, but for right now, it's just recognize. Just recognize that you have this inner genius, that you can know things, that you can create things, and that you can be successful because this inner genius is specifically yours. We used to use a term bespoke when it was made just for you. And this was just made for you. And it'll help you fulfill your purpose. And it will help you live according to your nature. It'll help you create things that you couldn't think of up in your intellect. And it can work with your intellect very beautifully. So let's go back upstairs to the intellect for just a minute before we go and just let's give the inner wisdom something to work on. The intellect, what it's really good for is deciding what you want, what do you love, what do you want to have happen. So think now, how do you want the rest of the day to go for you? Beautiful night's sleep, lovely conversation with family, happy moments with the pets, reading a book, whatever it is, just imagine what it is. And then I want you to imagine a step further, imagine something even better than that. Because you know you can make all that happen. That's no big deal. But what would be a really, really cool evening? What would make it really special? And once you've selected something, bring your attention back down into the heart. And breathe in to the heart and breathe in that feeling of whatever it is you're creating. For me, it's a loving relationship with somebody that I'm going to be talking with. Way better than usual. Oh, it's going to be so cool. And I can feel it. It makes me want to smile. And whatever it is for you, just breathe that into your heart and know the feeling of it. Then go to some future place where that already happened. It's not a big deal. It's not scary. It's not new. It's not unusual. It's something that already happened. I already had this loving relationship. I already had this beautiful conversation. I remember when that happened. And then come back into the present moment. And the best way to be in the present moment is to wiggle your fingers and toes so you're in your body, not disassociated at all. And when you come back into your body, just take another nice deep breath in and shake it all off and forget everything I said and just consider us complete and hopefully you will go to your evening and enjoy your experience.
Thanks, Ruth.
Thank you so much.
You're jumping the gun there.
So that's the kind of orientation I do with my clients. I usually do big projects. Maybe they have a big project of things they want to experience or a change they want to make, that kind of thing. And we try to get them into the constant day-to-day orientation. So a lot of that is just spending quiet time every day, which a lot of us are doing anyway. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's
Nice. Very nice.
Wonderful experience.
Good, good. And short.
Does anybody have any questions?
There is that. Yeah.
Anybody have any questions for Ruth or comments?
Uh, I just want to sit with it. It feels good.
That's the point. Yeah.
I'm really tickled that this is the way it went because each of the segments was so good. And as one of the presenters, we generally don't get to partake in any of that. Sandra, you have the most wonderful voice for the work that you're doing. It's just like, oh, I had a moment where I thought, boy, if I was any more relaxed, I'd slip right into a coma. And getting into the heart and out of the head that's one of my big challenges in life. So Ruth, thank you for that. Sterling, it was interesting. I'm afraid that my brain did not compute entirely, but I'm hoping that there were a couple of nuggets that landed on their way through because it was really good and it was a really nice presentation. So thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I could envision seeing you to help me plan a project and what to bring to each part of it. It was very interesting, and I wish I could get my head around it a little better.
Well, I just need a little more time.
Right, right.
so when you're moving out of your head into your heart, then see yourself doing that, right? Ruth?
I'm thinking about that.
Yeah. You know,
I don't know if I see myself doing it or not.
yeah. Yeah, I'm interested in the sound therapy that Sandra was talking about too, and at some point it would be interesting to figure out how the vibration works with music as well. Specifically, there's so many aspects of sound and vibration and personal effect and things. I was in communication with a fellow, his name is Jason Eastwood. He does guitarfulness and he creates good vibration guitar music, with according to specific hertz vibrations and things like that. And it's just sort of like it'd be fun to look more into the fine tuning the chakras with tuning forks and what Sandra's doing and how it all works together. That's an area of interest of mine too.
Yeah. Won't be bad, Betty.
All right. Well, I want to thank the presenters so much it was wonderful. I really enjoyed being able to really fully be present for all of them, which I usually have to bounce back and forth. So thank you all so much for the wonderful presentations. Eric, you started it off with a bang, and I concur fully with what you said. Sterling, thank you so much. Sandra, Ruth, really, really wonderful presentations from everybody. Thank you so much.
Fun.
And thanks the people that showed up. Really appreciate you being here. Please take advantage of Find Magic People to stay in contact if you have any questions or you want to follow up, you want to learn more from anybody. Absolutely, I'm sure everybody would love to hear from you. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much for a great evening. I kept thinking of people, oh, I wish so-and-so was here to hear this.
Right, yeah, yeah. And Eric, it was nice to see you again.
You as well, Elaine.
Okay.
Derek, I would like to say thank you for your bringing this together and bringing us here and creating something. So thank you very much.
Well, it's my pleasure. I really, my sense that when I first needed stuff like this, I didn't know how to find it. And so a big part of what I'm trying to do is make all of this, all the information, all the magic more accessible to people.
Yeah.
And I think this is a wonderful way to do it. So thank you everybody for being part of what I'm creating.